All right. Well, good morning, going into the afternoon, everyone. Appreciate everyone joining us today. We've got, looks like about 15 or 16 people in attendance, so pretty decent little crowd. Today's meeting is a little bit different than what we, I guess, traditionally do, as far as we don't really have a true speaker, but what we do have for you is a group of speakers to have a little HR roundtable discussion about some topics that have certainly been hot in the press as of lately, and just some other things that tend to come up quite a bit when we talk about HR related tasks and duties that we all find ourselves completing. For those of you that, if anybody is new, I'm J.W. Bramlett. I'm the current president of Tri-State SHRM Texarkana, finishing out my term, and as we transition into the next year with LaTanya leading the way, and a couple new board members that are on the meeting today. So we appreciate that. And just to kind of let everybody know, we do plan to go back to in-person meetings in January and have like a hybrid type event. We have a meeting owl that we purchased that kind of gives a really good experience for those that are not able to physically attend, but we want to do things to encourage you to come back and attend in person, because it has crazily, it's been over a year since we've met in person, and it's just been a long time, and I know I miss it. It's been convenient having Zoom. Luckily, we kind of found ways to adapt and improvise and overcome the difficulties of COVID and not being able to get together, but it's certainly time for us to get back together in person, and we do plan to start those back in January. But for those of you that are out of town, or your schedule gets really crazy on a day, you'll still be able to join by Zoom, and we're going to have some fun things planned though to try to get you there in person if at all possible. So that's the big news. We did have our recent election for our board members, and LaTanya, as I mentioned, will be our president for 2022, with Juliana Gonzalez for the time being. She's getting married soon. She'll be our president-elect. And then the only real changes other than that is we're going to have Adele King join the board and Vanessa Shane joining the board. We'll have a couple people drop off. Brittany Yeldale, who's done a great job with our chapter the last couple of years, especially the last couple of years, but for longer than that, actually. And then I'm drawing a blank. Elaine Christensen Kelton will be dropping off of her at-large spot, but everybody else will remain in their positions unless LaTanya, decides to make any additional changes or add some places. But that'll be, for her to announce when that time comes. But we look forward to a great year coming up in 2022. We will not have a regular monthly meeting in December. So for those of you that are attending today, this will be our last regular meeting of 2021. And then we'll start back up in January with our meeting, to where we'll elect or swear in our new officers and get the new year started. So with that being said, we'll transition into our actual discussion today. I want to introduce our members of our panel. I'll be moderating, and I like to talk, so I'll probably chime in from time to time. But our actual panel members are LaTanya McElroy, Felicia Drake, and Steve Collier. And for those of you that may or may not know the three of them, I kind of want to give just brief introductions to each of them. LaTanya is currently the Senior VP of Human Resources and Chief People Officer at BCS Data Center Operations. LaTanya is a native of Texarkana, graduating from Liberty Isle High School, Texarkana College, and earning her bachelor's and master's degrees from Texas A&M University, Texarkana. And LaTanya is certified in SHRM, has a SCP and a SPHR. Felicia is currently the VP of Human Resources at Red River Employees Federal Credit Union. Felicia is a native of Texarkana as well, graduating from Arkansas High School and earning both her bachelor's and master's degrees from Texas A&M University, Texarkana. Felicia is also certified as a SHRM CP. And our last panel member is Steve Collier. Steve has started his own HR consulting business after a lengthy career, 40-year HR career, most recently with BWI here in Texarkana. Steve graduated with his bachelor's degree from Rice University and obtained his master's degree from Texas A&M University College Station. And Steve is also certified in SHRM, has a SCP as well as SPHR. And myself, aside from being the president, I am the current interim administrative services director, which oversees the HR department here at the city of Texarkana, Texas. And I recently got certified with my SHRM certification back in 2021 or 2020. It's been about a year and a half. So hopefully between the four of us, we can provide some really good insight into some of the topics that we're going to talk about. And we just hope that you'll enjoy the topics, and feel free to ask questions, put some things over here in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat, but this is just going to be a pretty open discussion about these topics and things that you're probably all dealing with. And afterwards, if there's something we don't cover, then please feel free to ask. This is the time to just have kind of an informal talk about some of the things that we're all dealing with. So is there anything that our panelists would like to say before we get started?
No, I just hope it's an interactive discussion. All of us have, I think, a different perspective to share. And some of us obviously work in organizations where some of the questions you may be actually doing some things yourselves that you would like to share. And I would hope that this is an interactive discussion among all of us, so we can walk away with something, a value we can take back to each of our employers.
Well said, LaTonya.
And one thing I forgot to mention is that all three of our panelists here have been former presidents of Tri-State SHRM Texarkana. And so we'll kind of touch on that here at the end of our discussion today about serving as a leader within the HR community, and more importantly with Tri-State SHRM. So our first question, and we'll just kind of, whoever wants to speak up first, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But, obviously there's been a lot of talk about the COVID vaccine, ETS mandate, and testing. So we'll start off with whoever wants to speak up, but what is your organization doing in preparation for the COVID vaccine mandate? And just kind of a little caveat here for those that maybe haven't been paying as close of attention. The Fifth Circuit put a hold on the mandate, but I think it's kind of up in the air on how long that hold will take place before the mandate actually takes effect, or if it will take effect. So kind of keep that in mind, but you should, as an organization, you should still be taking steps to prepare for in case we do end up having to follow the mandates in the Fifth Circuit. Their hold on this process doesn't last very long. So kind of with that being said, I'll open it up to the panel to discuss what your organizations are doing.
For us at the credit union, we've just been trying to be transparent with our employees. We've posted information in Teams, just letting them know initially what took place. I think it was the 4th. And then we've also posted information, with the stay that's in place right now. We've also allowed employees to ask some questions, and I've just been going to the OSHA website, to the FAQs, and pulling out responses. We've also sent out a survey just in preparation for what we thought might take place. And we just polled employees to see who was vaccinated, who was not, who planned to get vaccinated within the next couple of months, so we can somewhat have an idea of how this might impact our organization. And the next thing that we're doing now is taking the sample policy that's on the website. I'm not trying to go in and create something new when something's already available, and we're just making the suggestions they're saying we could do. So we'll have a policy in place. And As you mentioned, there's a stay, and my hope is that all this go away because I don't want to have to record keep this, but that's my own selfish reasons. But we've started like a roadmap. So if nothing's in place by the 1st of December, we'll start the process. So if it does come in place in January, we'll be ready for it.
That's great, Felicia. A lot of good information there. Anyone else on the panel that would like to chime in on what your organization's doing, or Steve, what you're seeing some organizations do?
Our experience is when you're with the smaller organizations, you may have a little more leverage, like it's 100, right, or more. Does anybody have organizations where I know some of you don't have control because you're a part of larger systems, right? That are bigger than your local Texarkana, but are any of you in smaller companies or organizations that are kind of right on the cusp of that mark, and concerned of maybe if you go over, well, our feedback from some of our teams, depending on who you ask, is they're absolutely opposed to being mandated to have the vaccination. So we've got issues there and concerns with retention and turnover as a result of that. So we've actually tried to keep our numbers under specific EINs under the head count, in hopes that will help us, which has meant a little bit of restructuring in terms of that. So there's a parent organization with multiple subsidiary organizations. I can't remember the right term. Louise can help me, but they're separate EINs anyway. So that they're under a different company and under the 100 mark could kind of help us alleviate a little bit of stress around the whole idea of the requirement or mandate. I mean, all of us have our opinions about it, but there are people who have a strong aversion to getting the mandate. So that's been our concern, is retaining those.
We have the same issue with being concerned about retention, but we only have 16 employees, but we're a federal contractor. So we're honestly waiting for the Army to tell us what to do, and then we'll go from there. And we have not said anything to our employees because there's nothing to tell them. If we tell them we will be mandated, but then we don't know if it's going to be mandated. We don't know what the Army's going to do here locally. So we're just kind of waiting.
Well, this is Jackie at the Housing Authority. I mean, we have a small staff too, but right now, public housing authorities, from my understanding, we're not considered federal contractors. So we're kind of out of the loop right now as far as the mandate, but we've been keeping abreast of the news that's coming across, in the PHA community. So, but for the most part, out of our 15 staff, I believe there's a 90% vaccination rate. There may be just 1 or 2. So we're almost all immunized anyway. So I don't think it'll be a big impact for us.
I think it's going to be hard for those employers to have 100 or more. If you're thinking about, say, if 50% of your workforce is vaccinated, what are you going to do with that other 50% if they refuse? Or even, I don't know if you guys been reading, but even if, they've been asking about over-the-counter kits to test. Well, they're also saying that if you're doing that, you need to have someone that is impartial or a telehealth practitioner. So that also caused a burden with HR being in Texas, and we're in 4 different states from our organization. So there are a lot of moving pieces with this that's going to have an impact on employers with 100 or more.
So let me ask this,
Go ahead.
Jackie, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize, but I'm interested.
No, I'm glad to hear from you, Jackie.
So have you all thought about, as practitioners, you do have some employees, and I mean critical employees, that information is going to leave because they may be one of those groups or one of those individuals who say, I'm absolutely not doing, I'll just work somewhere else. Have you thought about a game plan for how you're going to manage that?
I'm not in the health industry, so I'm really not sure about practitioners, but it is something that we're thinking about as far as being able to take care of our membership.
Right. And I guess I should say practitioners in your industry.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, and I know you know this to be true, the best investment a company has is their human capital. So now with all of these mandates looming, I mean, I know a lot of people, executives of companies who say, you know what, I will give my resignation, I'll be done if I'm forced to do this. So my question is, are you all thinking internally what your next steps are if you do lose those critical personnel?
Well, one thing that got brought up during a webinar I watched yesterday was that employees, can certainly make that threat, so to speak. But if the types of companies they want to go work for are in the same position, then they're going to be in the same boat, unless they go and try to work for a company that has less than 100 people.
Mhm.
So employees may overreact and say that, but if they want to make that same amount of money that they're currently making, they're probably going to have to work for a similar type company that may also find themselves in the same situation. And so I think kind of educating employees about that before they turn in that resignation letter, especially if they're a good employee, is to make them aware that, you may not find another position out there where you're going to make the same amount of money here with the same amount of benefits and not find yourself in the same exact situation. So I think having that conversation with employees could be important.
And they can test. They don't have to get vaccinated.
Right.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. And I was trying to look, that webinar I watched yesterday, it was pretty good. It was from, let's see.
OSHA, I saw that.
Yes.
Recording. Uh-huh.
Arkansas State Chamber put it on. And I will send that email out to all of our members with the link to the webinar because they recorded it. And it was about an hour long, but they had a lot of good discussion about these types of things. So I'll send that out after the meeting today to everybody that's here and all of our members. So that way, if you got time, watch it, and you may pick up a couple of things that may apply to you.
Okay, so I have a question. Felicia, you mentioned that they may not be mandated to take the vaccine, but they would have to have the COVID testing. Is that going to be at the expense of the employee or the employer? And would it be covered under health care? I mean, your health benefits.
For OSHA, they're saying the employer is not responsible.
That's what I thought.
paying
Okay.
for it.
So ultimately, the employer isn't. But if you think about it, if you're under a self-funded plan, you're paying for it anyway. And so you might want to be able to control the cost by purchasing in bulk or something like that. That's my suggestion. And then also, I'm hoping that they have the lesson. If they do have to have, so to speak, a medical professional or review officer, I'm hoping that before anything is implemented, there's a process in place where, for example, testing is not so invasive, number one. Number two, that we could send these off in packets to a centralized location and get results that way, where we wouldn't have to have a medical officer. I don't know, but the implementation of it, I guess somebody being there, visibly there to make sure it's that individual makes sense. Felicia, I just don't feel like there's enough information, or
Correct.
I don't think and if we're not in a position as employers to implement it without being unduly burdened, then I think that we're going to be among a large number of employers. So my question becomes, who is really going to be able to use that?
Right, exactly.
And you might have 100 employees, but you might have a branch where there's only 4 people in the branch, and so who's going to take that responsibility? So I think there's a lot of unknown. And so my advice to employees that are passionate about their view, so to speak, is just let's try and be optimistic and, and hope for the best, because right now I don't think OSHA knows how they're going to do some of this as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know for sure if anybody else is on the meeting today that this applies to, but in case it does, I'll go ahead and mention it. As a city government, we luckily do not have to abide by the ETS because we're not regulated by OSHA. So if you happen to work for a municipality or definitely municipality. I don't know about counties or the state government, but definitely municipalities, at least in Texas, we do not abide by OSHA guidelines, and the state of Texas does not have a state plan. So fortunately for us, we don't have to abide by it. But, again, I don't know who all's on the meeting today, if that even applies to any of you. But I wanted to at least throw that out there because that's something we've been following, is if it was going to apply to us or not. All right, any other comments on that topic? Are we ready to move on to the next one? Because the next one's another big one that's definitely been a hot topic, and one that I think a lot of organizations have been striving to improve upon, and that is diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So what steps have your organizations made with regards to really investing in that, and not just saying it, but actually doing it?
We've just started like a DEI program. We started out with first thinking about our purpose and core values. And then from there, that kind of rolled into the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. But before we did anything, we spent some time researching on it, because I think sometimes, and I'm not judging organizations to do things just to check the box. Mm-hmm. And so we felt like if it was something that we're going to do, we need to do it to the fullest. So we started like a commitment statement and a plan. And then we also felt that it was important to get the buy-in from the top level, and hopefully it'll trickle down to the small, the lower level employees. So we visited with our board and we did a full out presentation, because I think sometimes when people think about diversity and equity and inclusion, they think about how many pink and orange people we have. They don't think about it's more than making sure everyone is included. And we say equity, but I also think about when we look at equity, we meet people where they're at. So not everybody might not be on the same bicycle. You might need to find that bicycle that fit that person. So we had those discussions, and then we start with our management team before we rolled it out to our employees. We have a designated person that's part of our learning and development team that's more or less like our ambassador over DE&I. And so she has initiatives that she set out for employees, but the most important thing is that she's trying to develop groups, what we call employee resource groups. And these are groups that are going to be a part of that diversity and inclusion. So it might be something, we took an active approach in National Hispanic Month last month and did a lot of things with that. But even though she's the more or less ambassador of a program, the employees got involved. And so she was just there facilitating. So it's just getting the buy-in from your top management to me, and just letting people know what DEI means, because a lot of times we just get focused on numbers and demographics, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Felicia. It usually, up to this point especially, has been all about numbers on a spreadsheet. And yeah, I like what y'all are doing with getting the buy-in and getting from the top down, getting everybody included. So it sounds like that's the right approach for sure. If you could draw it up, a scenario of how you implement that. Does anybody, Latanya or Steve, or do y'all have anything to add as far as kind of the processes you see that are important to
I think Felicia's doing it exactly the right way. I mean, you have to get leadership bought into the principles that are involved, and without that, you really can't make any headway in that regard. So I think that's the first step. And we have the same. We have similar issues in our chapter, and I'll be talking a little bit about that with the chapter. We want to make use of every single employee, or in this case, every single one of our members. We want them to be able to contribute, in a leadership way to the success of the chapter. And the same is true for any organization. If you've got folks who feel, disenfranchised or kind of pushed off to the side, that's not helpful to anyone, not to that employee, and certainly not to the organization. So kudos to you, Felicia, for what you're doing. It sounds like y'all are doing it exactly the right way.
Yeah, I agree. Everything that she said it's kind of encapsulated it. And the same thing they did when she said they started with their core values. It was a part of the strategic planning, and it involved the top leaders and the CEO. So I think that's the most important part. A lot of times too, people do, like she said, get stuck on numbers. Another thing that to consider is training around what inclusion really is. Like, people know what diversity is. And like she said, it's numbers in a room. It's like, it's numbers on the list, it's checking the boxes. But the part of that really resonates with me is the inclusion aspect. And since we have the floor today, and just something that's really been on my mind a lot is we really have to realize that having people in the room is not the same as including them in the conversation and listening with respect, listening for understanding, and being able to understand different perspectives. Most people will tell you that if they're a part of a minority group, whether that's disenfranchised, disabled, maybe they're one of the only in the group. It could be, I don't care what color, race, gender, what ethnicity that is, that's across the whole spectrum. When you're underrepresented or when there are historical disparities, what you'll hear more than anything is not that I'm not in the room, it's that nobody listens. Nobody listens to what I have to say. When I speak, it's not important, or it's not acknowledged. People want to be heard, listened to for understanding, and if we ask people for their feedback, listen. And I think that's probably the most important aspect of diversity is the real essence of inclusion. When people feel that, it reaches them, I think, deeper than just diversity. I think it's how people feel more than anything at the end of the day. And so hopefully that can come from training, but also can come from having some difficult conversations and helping to retrain our own behaviors and perceptions.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that strikes me about this is that this isn't just a racial issue. I mean, that's where you certainly feel the emotions, but it goes beyond that. I mean, certainly in privately held companies, a lot of employees feel like they can't say what they think because the ownership doesn't agree. So it's an important thing for all of us as organizations to consider. And I totally agree. This is a strategic initiative that every organization ought to consider. And I think you're saying it right.
Yeah, those are some really, really great comments. And I hope that if any of you are in the meeting today and you're kind of just starting that process or going down that path, that you'll utilize your resources and reach out to one of these panel members, because they've all done this long enough, just HR in general, that and sounds like obviously that they're already going down the right path as far as implementing a diversity, equity, inclusion program, that they can give you some really good insight to help you avoid some of the trips and falls that you may find yourself in otherwise if you don't seek help and guidance. So hopefully you'll reach out to Felicia or Latanya or Steve if you're kind of thinking about ways that maybe your organization can do things better. And because nobody's perfect at it, and so don't be afraid to reach out and get that conversation started, because I'm sure we all could do things better with regards to those aspects. All right. Any other comments on that topic before we move on to the next one?
Hi, James. This is Charlotte at A&M
Yes.
Texarkana. I'd just like to say that A&M Texarkana, we recently started, it's probably been close to a year ago that we started a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. We have lots of members from across the campus that are on the committee. Currently, Dr. Cottrell is chairing the committee. We of course have different, monthly activities and things like that, and initiatives and business plans and work plans and stuff like that. But we are, I can't say for certain, but we are considering posting a position, hopefully in the very near future, at a director level for a diversity, equity, and inclusion person. So
Awesome. That's
and
fantastic.
I'll try to give you an email or just a heads up once that position is posted.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to share that with our membership and
Excellent.
get them involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
All right, moving on to our next topic, which is related to benefits, and we're talking about all things benefits, not just insurance, but what type of benefits, LaTanya, Steve, Felicia, do you see that employees are desiring in the workplace currently or moving forward in the near future?
I'll say this mental health benefits have been a big deal for us recently, and also which many of you probably already have, identity theft insurance. And so a couple of neat benefits we're rolling out in January are a mental health, a proactive mental health platform. It's called Impact, and it allows employees to do proactive things that help them with 4 different components of mental health, stress, just day-to-day type of things, but then also anxiety and depression. There's one around substance abuse or control, and then there's one around sexual disorders and things that relate to those types of addictions or mental health issues. But it allows employees to proactively form habits that prevent them from having episodes or things like that. And then there's also another one that we're implementing. It's through our Health Joy app. Health Joy is an amazing app. It's our free telehealth. It has a bunch of other things, but one other additional thing we're adding to that is teletherapy. So teletherapy, just like you can call a doctor and get on the phone anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, teletherapy is one where, in addition to your EAP you might have, that's for triage, you got something where you can they can get matched up with a therapist. They may meet once a week, once a month, or whatever, and they get to meet with their person, on a regular and consistent basis. And it's free to the employee and it's confidential. It doesn't charge to the health plan or anything like that. So that one's neat. But this other one, that's one we're really excited about. It's called Vitality, and it's a wellness plan that gets them into gaming. Because it goes, we have people spread out across the country. It's hard to get people. Everybody's like, well, gym membership fixes it, but it doesn't if they don't have that gym in the vicinity, and it's hard to find programs. So we did an app where you can connect it to your phone, watch, Fitbit, and all that. And then it has some gaming involved where once you meet certain levels, you get money deposited into your HSA or your HRA. So that's one thing, because wellness has become like a home thing for a lot of people now. They don't go out to gym anymore. So this allows people to still obtain points and obtain credits and things like that, and also triggers some benefits as far as self-funded insurance is concerned. So those are the big ones for us from benefits, in addition to the identity theft and Norton LifeLock.
That's awesome. I made a note here about the wellness points through the gaming and getting money added to your HSA potentially. I like that. I may reach out to you and ask you more about that.
Okay.
A program that we have, LaTanya, here is it's under Humana, but it's called Go 365. And it works pretty much like what you're saying, but instead of money going to a HSA or something like that, you take your points and you buy things with it.
Yes.
Like I bought my second Fitbit because I managed to lose them somehow. And and a lot of people, when you tell them about wellness, the first thing they say, oh, we've got to go to the gym, we've got to exercise. Well, Charlotte is not the most athletic person, but your point, it connects with the Fitbit, and you get points for just your steps, and it racks them up. You get points like for having your physical done. You get points for flu shots. They even gave us points if you got vaccinated.
Mhm,
You can go in and fill out health questionnaires to get points.
mhm,
You can join different little programs and it gets points.
mhm.
And it's wonderful. It does, you never have to see the gym if you don't want to, and you can still get points. And we trade your points in. You can get gift certificates like to Chili's restaurants, to Amazon, to
Yeah.
Walmart, to Target, just whatever. And
Oh, that's good
we still
incentive.
have people that won't participate.
Oh, well, yeah. How many do you think percentage wise are participating? Because we're estimating and that's kind of going to impact budget. What is y'all's participation in your
Right
wellness?
now, we've got probably about 55% of the population is.
That's
When they
actually
found out you
good.
could get Amazon gift cards, that got a lot of them on board with it that wasn't bothering with it previously.
Well, that's commendable what you guys are doing and your participation levels. I mean, it's usually around 30 to 40 when you're really doing well. So that's great.
Thank you.
Charlotte, I don't want to put you on the spot because this may be kind of a tough question, but do you know when they redeem those points for gift cards, are they then taxed for the money that they're receiving?
No, it's all on the company because the way it works, like when I cashed them in to get my latest and greatest Fitbit,
Okay.
when we get the bill, because the agency pays for the entire program,
Okay.
it'll have on there Charlotte and how many points I deemed, and that calculates back to a dollar value.
Okay.
And I think the Fitbit was 500 points, so that was $50. And we just pay that $50 as part of that bill at the end of the month.
Okay. Great.
And one great thing about that program, we don't have Humana insurance. We just have Humana's Go 365. So you can get that without having their insurance.
Okay.
I like that, Charlotte. The freedom, people like to be able to spend their money where points where they want. And that's the value I think that program.
I like that.
Mhm.
All right. Any other thoughts on benefits that you see that employees are desiring or that you foresee could be beneficial moving forward?
One thing I would suggest, JW, is that, and this is not one that necessarily is, demanded particularly by younger employees, but looking at it from my perspective, retirement, from a retirement standpoint, retirement plans are absolutely critical to people, and we've got to do a better job of educating and helping them understand, having a diverse portfolio that doesn't rely on any one single, investment is very important. So I think a lot of education's required there. I think for those of you who have learning and development people on your staff, that's one that I would hope that we would, really elevate to a real critical status. We certainly seem to have enough funds right now, but who knows as we continue in life, and I think it's important that everybody put away some of their income towards the future.
Yeah, well said.
I agree. And do you guys have, was someone speaking?
Yeah, I
That's
was
okay.
going to. Or that's fine.
No, go ahead.
So one thing we're doing is a little different. We've been looking at ways to incentivize it's kind of tied back to the vaccine also, but try to incentivize our employees to get vaccinated for those who want to. Prior to it becoming mandated, we looked at some different things to add to HSA, or even a monetary value added to checks if people don't have HSA, or if they didn't want it put on their HSA. And what we're doing now, because we're going through open enrollment, is we actually did a discount for the vaccinated versus unvaccinated, kind of like if tobacco users versus non-tobacco users. We did similar to that. So it's a little discount for people who are vaccinated to still try to incentivize, because we're located in other states also, and our location here is probably the least amount vaccinated. I think we're at 30 something, maybe 40% vaccinated, whereas most of our other sites are in the 60s or 70% range. So I know I'm getting the most pushback, but that's just something we've done a little differently this year. So trying to sell that to employees is kind of hard, but just trying to make them under, because we are self-funded on our insurance also. And so trying to make sure, because that's a cost savings if we can get people vaccinated. Hopefully they won't be as sick if they do get COVID. So just one thing we're doing a little differently this year.
Eric, remind me, who are you with? What's your organization?
Brentwood Industries.
Okay. Yes.
So I'm in Hope, and then our parent company, our parent is in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Good. Thank you.
This is Vanessa, and I was going to add, kind of piggybacking on Stephen, what you talked about for education. So one of the things that I have a big passion around benefits, and just know that we don't do a good job educating our high school students, our college students, younger adults, and now they're even older when they're getting onto insurance independently with being able to stay on their parents till 26. So we did start a series of videos, short little 5-minute or less videos. One of them was 7, where we did like just an introduction to what we were doing, and then Insurance 101. One was on the high deductible plan and the HSA, and one was on prescriptions. And each one of them has kind of a nugget of knowledge, something that's quick that people might catch on to, whether it was just GoodRx as part of the prescription piece, or understanding, a communication with the doctor by giving some real examples. So that's one thing that we've started and plan to continue quarterly next year. And we've gotten really good feedback on that.
How are you guys doing that communication? Is it an email? How are you communicating it out, did you say?
So we have an internal person who does the podcasts for the bank, and she videoed our HR group. We teamed up together, and our third party, our broker, is Dane's Insurance, and they did a great job helping us. We teamed up together to kind of make those short videos, and then we posted them on our team's all site.
Yeah, that's what we kind of the method we're going with next year. Something similar to that, but like a live chat that's recorded. And so I was just wondering how effective you felt that was. But you know how it is. It's just benefits information overload during open enrollment, and people don't know half of what they've signed up for. So for the first 6 months, we just said we would pick a benefit and highlight it in our monthly chat and invite people in as an option, especially those that have the plan, but even those who don't have particular ancillary benefits, and still discuss it. I think that communication in education is extremely important, and people aren't reading emails. People don't read that much anymore. So videos and interactive sessions, especially when people are spread out, I think is effective. I'm glad to hear that you've gotten good feedback on it.
Yeah, I really like both of those, kind of a combination of what y'all are doing between you, LaTanya, and you, Vanessa. I may try to steal that idea and use it for us moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, people will watch a video before they'll listen or read things. So I think that's.
Yeah.
Does anybody have it's called health? I think it's called a concierge service, but basically, if someone's having a major procedure or major surgery or a major anything, someone who partners with them, and then they can go to centers of excellence for the procedure, and it wipes out their co-insurance and their deductible, and it also pays for the employee to travel and their family member. Does anybody else experience that? We implemented it last year, and it actually has they partner with employees right at the very beginning and help them find the best care available for whatever they need. And one of our employees has raved about it and said it literally changed his life. I'm not sure exactly the outcome yet. He's pursued his big major surgeries this week, but basically having the person have a major procedure, back surgery, knee surgery, or something major. Of course, it does take away a little bit from our local economy. I mean, but these are people spread out, so this is not just a Texarkana thing. But getting them to a facility that's the state of the art, one that does a higher volume of what they're getting, the outcomes are usually better, which means it's better on our insurance, it's better on the employee's recovery. It's also cheaper on the employee's pocket because it wipes out their out-of-pocket expense that would be related to it. I didn't know if anybody else had used a service like that, but I thought I would share that because it's been a tremendous help for us. With a couple of people having taken advantage of it.
Yeah, we don't have that service, but I have heard about it. And my wife actually, she works at TISD, that's Texarkana Independent School District, and they had an option this year. I think last year was the first year, but she took it this year for an alternative insurance third-party administrator, and they offer that concierge service. And we're kind of in the early stages of using it for something. So I'll keep you posted on how it goes. But so far it's been good. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people, the benefit is that, at least with us, especially at the city, a lot of our employees are not real educated on how to go through a process of, having a surgery. I mean, even myself, I've never had a major surgery. So if I had to do it, I'd be kind of going blindly through it, hoping I'd make the right choices. So I would say, yeah, Latanya, it seems like a great idea just to have somebody that's what they do for a living, is guide people through that process, and hopefully, like you said, help save your insurance funding as far as your cost, and kind of benefit everybody all the way around. Well, we're kind of nearing the end of our hour, and I did want to get into things that your organizations are doing to address some rising medical cost, but we just touched on one way you could do that with that concierge service. And I'll throw out one thing here just very quickly, and then I want to get into our last question, which is about serving in leadership roles within our chapter. And one thing that we do have here at the city of Texarkana, Texas, to help reduce our cost is a service that reviews your bills for you. And they're kind of like a concierge in the fact that if you're needing to have a procedure done, they will do the research on pricing, and then they will provide you, if I need to get an MRI done, I tell them that I don't want to travel more than 100 miles outside of Texarkana, and they'll give me, however many options there are, and provide me with pricing and ratings of the doctors and the facilities. And so that's one way we have tried to help get our costs down on insurance, is using that service. Our service is called Alight, is the name of the company, and the city pays for the service per user, and it's free for the employee to use. So the employee calls the company, they get a bill for $2,000 from the doctor. Alight, the company, will review that bill and make sure everything was coded correctly. And if that bill should have only been $1,200, then our employee pays $1,200. If our employee has already paid the bill, then our employee will get reimbursed the $800 too much that they spent. So that's just a quick plug for Alight or something similar as far as ways to kind of drive down your cost on your insurance, especially if you're self-funded, which we are here at the city of Texarkana, Texas. And so lastly, we got 7 minutes left. I want to give each panel member, and Steve, I think Steve may already have some things that he would definitely like to say on this topic. But as far as what are the benefits of having served in a leadership role in Tri-State SHRM Texarkana, and I just kind of open it up to whoever wants to start on our panel and give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, let me kind of kick things off on that, and then let's have a little bit of discussion. I'll try to move through this quickly. I put some thoughts down. I'd answer that question kind of in 3 different ways. First, with respect to what's the value to your own work organization, what's the value to Tri-State SHRM, and then what's the value to you personally. So let me kind of start with the work organization that each of us are parts of. We hear a lot about supply chain shortages in the news these days, but it's my belief that the greatest supply chain shortage is really effective leadership. And that's true, in our work organizations. You can see that. You guys have, personal experience where, gosh, I wish someone would take leadership for this and say it like it is and deal with this issue. So, the SHRM chapter that you're a member of, Tri-State, really gives you the opportunity to get out of whatever makes you feel, comfortable. In other words, your comfort zone. Let's call that comfort zone. And you might call it shyness or insecurity. Of course, looking at the faces on this, on this Zoom call, I don't know of a single one of you that falls in that category, but we all know that there are members that are like that in our chapter, that just they've got so much to bring to the table, and yet are either shy or insecure, or just don't want to come forward. So we need to help them step it up. So one thing I've learned over my 42 years in business is this about a leader. A leader is really not a position. It's not a title. It's not even a level in an organization. It's really you. So wherever you are in your organization, it can be you. So I think the SHRM chapter gives each of us the opportunity to really practice leadership in a pretty safe environment. We make lots of mistakes as board members. But there's always somebody beside you, helping, supporting you. And so for any of you who are comfort zone addicts, please consider serving in the chapter, because I think it's a great way to really make things happen and to get the experience that you need. Secondly, the chapter itself, we need a rich supply of engaged leaders every year. And we all come with different experiences and backgrounds. And it's really the diversity of those fresh ideas that actually help us. In my retirement, I've actually learned how to make sourdough bread. That's one of my chief, contributions to the family these days. And, the one key ingredient that makes sourdough work is this what they call starter. And starter is basically fermented flour and water, and it's the leavening agent that really uses naturally occurring yeast and bacteria to give the bread, sourdough bread specifically, its unique flavor, and makes it rise to a porous texture that is simultaneously airy and chewy. The starter requires cultivation and maintenance, though, in order to be properly fed. I keep a small supply in the refrigerator. And then the day prior to the bake, I actually get that out and refresh the starter by adding warm water and a little flour. And it literally powers and energizes the bread making process for the following day. Without it, sourdough doesn't have its unique taste or its porous consistency that we all love. And the same is true for our chapter leadership. Without you serving as leaders, cultivating your leadership skills and experience, we're very much lacking in energy, fresh ideas, and one of the most important things, fun. So the chapter needs each of our unique flavors and energy. And then thirdly, as a volunteer leader, personally, what can you value from this process? It's different for each person, but building your network of friends and colleagues is certainly key. And many HR problems that I've encountered in my career have been solved in part by friends that are part of my network that share their best practices. And almost always the local best practices are both practical and relatively simple to implement, as opposed to getting something from New York or Washington, D.C. So another value for you that serving as a volunteer leader builds a strong resume, so to help kind of develop your career path. And if you're looking for a job, obviously you need a strong resume. It also helps build skills that you can use in key leadership areas, One great example, would be strategic planning and direction setting. We did that back in 2018. We went through a process of strategic planning, and our chapter ended up winning 2 years later one of 12 Pinnacle Awards awarded in the U.S. that year, and just on the basis of what came out of that strategic planning process. So great practical learning experience that we all had through that experience. So if you're lacking in boldness and confidence, I think serving as a volunteer leader for the chapter is really, really helpful to overcome your comfort zone addiction. And you'll be surrounded by colleagues who live and work very hard to make it as safe as possible for you. So it's been fun for me serving as a leader. I know that LaTanya and Felicia, JW, and many others, Louise, all of you have really stepped it up at different times in your career. And I really appreciate all your value that you've provided for the chapter and for me personally. So,
Thank you, Steve.
What other thoughts? I mean, I know we're getting close on time, but what other thoughts or ideas there about leadership can you guys share?
I think you basically took care of everything. I think, with me, I feel like I've built some great relationships. I look at most of the people that are signed on here that I have consulted in one way or another over time. And I'm not a public speaker. I cringed when JW asked me, but I know he asked for a reason, so I didn't say no. But I've definitely stepped out of my comfort zone because I feel like I'm among a group of people that I'm comfortable with. So,
I agree, Felicia. I always think of you when I think about somebody that emerged, it was relatively quiet and emerged in that process, and you become a very strong leader. LaTanya, I think, was kind of born with, sort of that, outgoing personality. She probably never felt this way, but I would say 9 times out of 10, most of us are more like you, Felicia. LaTanya, did I mischaracterize you?
I'm just one of those that got pushed off the ledge a lot earlier in my life.
I mean, I think that's
but it's a different makeup, and everybody's unique and different. I just know how to cover it up when I'm scared to death. I'm shaking. I'm doing it. And I'm still shaking most of the time.
Well, I think you're right, though. I think getting pushed off the edge is sort of what's required. You obviously have to do it in a way that is supportive and done in love, but certainly we all need to think about all of our members and how can we encourage them to step up and play a bigger role.
Yes, and we need a program chair. I think that would be an awesome opportunity, and I would, like Steve said, be supportive of anyone in that role, finding speakers, and even the process. I don't want anyone to think that signing up means you're in it all by yourself and the weight of the chapter is on you. Right. We would work as a team, but that's a great opportunity for anyone who's like, I'm a little shy, this is not my thing. You won't have to speak a lot in that kind of role. Just need a little time to work together with yourself, myself, and maybe a couple members of our chapter to help come up with some ideas about great speakers and programs, and we'll carry the weight together. So well I just use this as a shameless plug to ask for one more person to volunteer for that role. Don't be shy. I was thinking maybe, I could volunteer you, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and to the points that have been made by Steve and Felicia and LaTanya, just to kind of give you another perspective on it from my perspective, and that was, I came from a position or a role that was not HR originally. I mean, I'm a former teacher and coach, and so I tell you this for those of you that are on the call that may lack maybe the confidence to step up and join in a leadership role within our organization. I had no background in human resources, and I got asked shortly after I came to work at the city to come to a meeting at Tri-State SHRM Texarkana, and I knew absolutely nobody in that room really. And I don't know, 3 or 4 years short later, I'm the president. I still don't know how that happened exactly, but the point is that we will help you. Where this is not an organization that, you know, we have like clicks, or, you know, you've got to earn your stripes necessarily before we trust you to help out. We just need people that have good attitudes and that want to be involved, you know. And I think the fact that you're even on this call today says that you want to be involved.
Yeah.
You just may not realize yet your full potential of taking on a little bit more. And it's never anything that's overwhelming. I mean, being in the president's spot this past 2 years, I kind of have a good overarching view of what all goes on. And none of the jobs that are assigned to anybody are so overwhelming that they can't ever perform them, because there's always somebody else there to help and rely on and ask for help and fall back on. So I hope that anybody that's in this meeting today that has not served on the board will strongly consider it, especially in the program chair position. Now, Brittany is on the call, and she did set a very high bar, okay? But it doesn't mean that you can't match it and even surpass it moving forward, because Brittany's not necessarily going anywhere. You know, if we got to call Brittany and ask for a little bit of help, we can call her. But there's a lot of others on the board that are willing to help too. And this is just a great group. I've met a lot of great people on the board, and some of the folks that I've met, I mean, I would call in a heartbeat if I needed help with something, and truly, I mean, some friends. So thank you for all of you that are joining us today. But I ask you to, if you haven't done so, to step up and take that next step to serve as a leader on our board. Any other thoughts or comments? All right. Well, today's meeting was recorded, so it will be on our website sometime today or tomorrow. I'll send out an email just reminding you of that, so you can always go back and watch it, or if you want to share it with your team or anything else. But check out our website for other things as well. Again, I'm going to also send out an email with a link to that video from the Arkansas State Chamber, where they talked pretty in depth about all the variables related to the COVID ETS vaccine mandate. So you'll probably find at least a couple of nuggets in there that may be beneficial to you. And if we don't have any other comments, it's been a great 2021. We have certainly made the best of it. And I'm proud to say that our participation in our meetings really didn't drop off throughout COVID. We've averaged about the same number we did when we were meeting in person. But we will be back in person in January, and I'm excited to be serving with LaTanya and just make it another great year. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you in January.
Thanks, JW.
Thanks, JW.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.